The morning started with the smell of cinnamon coffee. My mother only made it on Christmas. It was her signal that the performance was beginning. I woke at 6:32 and heard it before I heard anything else, and then I heard the footsteps. Too many of them for that hour. My father's boots. My mother's slippers. Something heavy being dragged across hardwood. There was already a suitcase in the middle of my room. I had not put it there. 3 knocks at the door. Then my mother's voice, quiet and practiced. The voice she used when she didn't want my sister to hear. "Amber, sweetheart. Get up. We need to talk." I had heard that voice through the kitchen wall the night before. "Just keep it short," she had told my father. "Don't let her cry her way out of it." I opened the door. She walked past me to my dresser and started pulling clothes out and dropping them into a 30-gallon trash bag without folding. My grandmother's old cardigan went in the same as my socks. Behind her, my father Gary stood in the doorway. He had not looked at me directly in 2 years. He wasn't looking at me now either. He was looking at the wall above my head. Then he stepped forward, took the bag from my mother's hands, and slammed it against my chest so hard I hit the wall. The framed family portrait behind me fell and cracked face down on the carpet. The one I wasn't in. He had hung that picture himself. Finally, he said, low in his throat, "Pack your things and get out of our house." It was the most words he had spoken to me in 3 years. My mother took my elbow and pulled me toward the stairs. The Christmas tree was lit in the living room, 8 feet of balsam with the fat-colored bulbs my grandfather had used since 1972. She walked straight to the fireplace, reached up and ripped my Christmas stocking off the mantel, the white one with silver thread, my name stitched into it by my grandmother, and threw it into the fire. It went up fast. The lining was synthetic. For 1 second, the smell was almost like the cedar dust in my grandfather's shop. Then it wasn't. She turned to face me, and her expression was calm, satisfied even. "You've ruined every Christmas since you were born," she said. "We never wanted you here." My first thought, standing in front of the fireplace with my own name burning behind her, was not how could she. My first thought was, of course, she had been saying it sideways for 25 years. She had finally found a stage. Then my sister Cassie came down the stairs. She was already filming. Phone held vertical, screen facing herself so she could watch her own reaction. "Hey besties," she said into the camera. "This is real. This is happening live." She didn't look at me once. Not when my mother handed me the bag. Not when my father unlocked the front door. Not even when she angled the phone to catch my face in the frame and laughed. "Good luck starting over, loser," she said. "No one in this family is going to miss a worthless burden like you." I was in my wool socks. No shoes. The cold from the open door hit my legs first, then the bruise already forming across my collarbone. I picked up the walnut box from the bottom step where I had set it the night before. I had carried it downstairs at midnight almost without thinking, as if my body knew before I did. I stepped over the threshold. The snow came up to the tops of my socks before I reached my car. I closed the door behind me the way my grandfather had taught me to close cabinet doors when I was 8 years old. Quietly. All the way. They thought silence meant I had nothing to say. Silence was the first thing Roy Holloway ever taught me how to use. My grandfather built cabinets for 40 years out of a one-room shop on 8th Street in Traverse City. The shop smelled like cedar and shellac and the burnt coffee from a percolator older than I was. He wore a leather apron with a horseshoe-shaped burn on the right side from a piece of walnut that had jumped off his lathe. He never replaced it. He said the burn meant the apron was working. When I was 8, my mother started dropping me off at his shop in the afternoons. My sister, who was 5, was already in 3 enrichment programs. I was not in any. My grandfather would meet my mother at the door, lift my backpack off my shoulders and say, "We have work to do." Never to her. Always to me. He gave me pine and sandpaper. "Sandpaper goes with the grain, sweetie," he said. Always with the grain. People are the same. The summer I was 15, my grandmother died. A stroke at the kitchen sink. My mother decided we should move in to help. My grandfather had a 4-bedroom house he had built with his own hands in 1971. He cleared his office so my sister and I could share it. The first night I heard my mother in the hallway telling my father, "Just hang in there. He's 70. Maybe 5 more years." I knew even at 15 that you don't say that about your father. An hour later, when I got up for water, my grandfather was standing in the hallway in his gray flannel pajamas with a glass in his hand. He had heard it. He had been standing there longer than I had been awake. He didn't say a word. He just stepped aside so I could pass. But the next morning he asked me to come to the shop on Sundays. I went every Sunday from that summer until the week before he died. In May of the following year, my mother lost a bracelet at a Memorial Day barbecue. A silver thing she bought herself, nothing valuable. She announced to 15 guests that I had taken it. When I said I hadn't, she crossed the patio in 2 strides and slapped me hard enough to leave a handprint on my face. My sister laughed. My father looked at his shoes. My grandfather walked over from the grill, put his palm between my shoulder blades, and guided me into the kitchen. He held a dish towel full of ice against my cheek himself. Then he said quietly, "Don't cry in front of her. Save it. Save everything." The next afternoon he called me to the shop. He was standing at the workbench with something in his hands. A small wooden box. Walnut, 12 inches long, dovetailed corners, a thin cherry border on the lid. Burned across the top with the tip of a soldering iron. For Amber. Hull. 2016. He held it out flat on both palms like he was handing me something that could break. "Don't open it," he said. "Just keep it. Anytime, any reason, any hour." I put it at the bottom of my closet that night. I did not open it for 9 years. He got sick in September of 2024. Pancreatic. Fast. He died in October at 78. At the funeral reception, my mother cried harder than anyone. She stood by the liquor cabinet accepting condolences with one hand pressed to her chest. While she did, I watched her eyes move to the bookshelf where my grandfather kept his important papers. She looked at it the way a person looks at a door they already believe they have the key to. She was calculating the inheritance before she had taken her coat off. She had been doing that math for years. I see that now with perfect clarity. From the outside it had looked like generosity. My sister Cassie went to private school. Cherryland Academy, $24,000 a year. She never worked a summer job. I went to public school. When I asked at 17 whether there might be money for college, my mother folded her hands and said in her practice voice, "Honey, college isn't really your thing. Maybe community college if you can work for it." I worked for it. 3 years waitressing. An associate degree in horticulture. $11,000 in student loans that were mine alone. There had always been money. I just didn't know yet where it had actually gone. On Christmas Eve, I came downstairs for water near midnight and heard my parents in the dark kitchen. "After tomorrow," my mother said quietly, "it's just our family. Just our real family." My father didn't argue. He never argued. He rinsed his glass and walked past me on the stairs without seeing me. I went back to my room. For the first time in years, I took the walnut box out of the bottom of my closet. I set it on the nightstand. I looked at the burned letters on the lid. For Amber. Hull. 2016. I did not open it. I slept 4 hours. I drove east on M72 with the heater on, and the trash bag in the passenger seat, and the walnut box on the dashboard. No shoes. Wool socks. The bruise on my collarbone already darkening. I pulled into an empty parking lot at 9:13 in the morning and sat with the engine running. Picked up the box. The lid fit so tightly I had to push it with the heel of my hand. When it finally lifted, the smell that came out was 9 years old. Cedar faintly. And the dry, patient smell of something that had been waiting in a wooden box for a very long time. For things inside. A brass house key, heavy the way old keys are, tied to a small leather tag. On the tag in my grandfather's handwriting, front. 1971. A folded piece of yellow notepad paper smaller than my palm. Inside in pencil. Anytime, any reason, any hour. A business card. White. Northern Trust Bank, Traverse City. Dale Peton, branch manager. On the back, in my grandfather's handwriting, a number and a sentence. Tell Dale you're the granddaughter. He'll know. And a photograph. Black and white, 4x6, edges soft and curled. My grandfather at 55, standing in the cherry orchard behind the house, holding a baby wrapped in a white knitted blanket. On the back in pencil, May 18, 2000. Cherry Bend. The day I was born. I had never seen that photograph. I did not know it existed. I sat in that parking lot and cried for the first time that morning. Not loudly. 2 minutes, maybe, with the heater running and snow falling onto the windshield. Then I put the photograph back, started the car and drove downtown. Northern Trust sat on Front Street in a brick building from 1908, between a fudge shop and a bookstore. The front door had a brass handle worn smooth by 100 years of hands. Inside, the floor was old marble, gray with dark blue veins. 2 tellers on duty. One of them, a woman in her 40s with reading glasses on a chain, looked up as I crossed the lobby in my wool socks and gray sweater, the bruise visible above my collar. She did not flinch. She smiled professionally. I set the business card on the counter. My grandfather gave me this, I said. I think there might be an account. She looked at the card. She looked at the back. She looked at my face for a half-second longer than necessary. Then she picked up the phone, pressed a single button, and spoke quietly into it. She hung up. Mr. Peton is coming out to meet you personally. Would you like a glass of water? Yes, I said. 40 seconds later, a man in his early 60s walked out of a corner office. He wore a brown cardigan with a worn patch on the right shoulder. My grandfather had owned the same cardigan. He stopped about 10 feet from me. Miss Frell, he said. It was not a question. He was confirming something. Yes. Please come with me. Bring the box. I had not mentioned the box. He had not seen it. But he had glanced at the canvas tote in my hand and turned without waiting. His office was at the back. Wooden desk. I recognized it immediately. My grandfather had built it. On the wall, a photograph of 2 men in fishing waders on a dock at Higgins Lake. One of them was Dale, 20 years younger. The other was my grandfather. Dale closed the door behind us, turned the lock, pulled the blinds down one by one. Then he sat across from me and folded his hands on the walnut desk. Miss Frell, he said, your grandfather has been waiting for this day for 9 years. I have been waiting with him. He opened the bottom drawer. He took out a navy blue folder. The cardboard cover was soft at the edges from age. On the front, in my grandfather's handwriting, for Amber. Hold until she comes in. He set it on the desk between us. Miss Frell, sit down. What I'm about to show you is going to change everything your family just did to you. He laid a manila envelope beside the folder. He placed both hands flat on top. Your grandfather didn't just leave you a key. He opened the folder to the first page. A notarized document. Holloway Family Revocable Living Trust. Grantor Roy Holloway. Successor Trust Dale Peton. Sole beneficiary. Amber Lynn Frell. The signature was my grandfather's. The date was August 8, 2016. 63 days after my mother had slapped me in the backyard. I looked at the page for a long moment without speaking. The cedar smell from the box was still faint in the air between us. Dale did not rush me. He simply turned to the next page and waited. Dale spent the next 30 minutes walking me through the folder the way you walk someone through the rules of a game that has already been played and already been won. In August of 2016, he said, your grandfather walked into Helen Crestwood's office 3 blocks from here and asked her one question. Can I put my house in my granddaughter's name without my daughter ever knowing? Helen told him yes. He came back the following Tuesday with a cashier's check and a contractor's pencil from his shop because he didn't like the pen she kept in her office. She made him sign it again in pen. He told me that part himself. Dale turned the page. As of August 9, 2016, the property at 818 Cherry Bend Road was no longer in your grandfather's name. It was held in trust. He retained the right to live there until he died. But the title belonged to the trust, and the trust belonged solely to you. When he passed on October 11, 2024, the deed transferred to you automatically. No probate. No court. No daughter ever needed to sign a thing. He turned another page. Your parents have been living in your house for 14 months without paying you rent. He let that sit between us like a document itself. He turned again. Pot account. Northern Trust. Open March 2020. Sole beneficiary on death. Amber Lynn Frell. Balance at time of transfer. $86,000. He came in every spring for 4 years and added to it. Always cash small bills. Cabinet commissions he hadn't reported to anyone. The last deposit was August 2024, 2 months before he went into the hospital. The note he asked me to enter for that year. For when she'll need it. I had to look at the ceiling for a moment. When I looked back down, Dale had opened the manila envelope. 3 pages, Northern Trust letterhead. The first was dated November 14, 2024. 8 days after the funeral, Diane Frell appeared at branch requesting release of father's accounts to next of kin. Informed account holder did not name her as beneficiary. Left agitated. The second, May 22, 2025. Diane Frell appeared with certified birth certificate requesting inheritance reversal. Informed beneficiary designation is irrevocable. Left agitated. The third, September 3, 2025. Diane Frell appeared with husband requesting meeting to discuss family hardship. Beneficiary designation cannot be contested without legal cause. Husband raised voice. Mrs. Frell stated at exit. She doesn't even know. She doesn't deserve to know. I read that last line 3 times. She came here 3 times, I said quietly. Yes. Your grandfather's instructions were that I was not to contact you. He said you would walk in when you were ready. He was very specific about that. He also said, and I am quoting him directly, that if your mother showed up here 3 times, it meant she was about to do something direct to you. He looked at me carefully. You walked in this morning, Miss Frell. I did not answer. He did not push. He slid a final page across the desk. An asset summary. Real property, 818 Cherry Bend Road. Approximate market value, $340,000. Pot account, $86,000. Cabinetry equipment and lathe, $28,000. 2008 Ford F-150, $11,000. Total, approximately $465,000. Dale tapped the page once with his index finger. Your mother told 3 of my tellers on 3 separate occasions that you were a worthless burden. I am sitting here with $465,000 of evidence to the contrary. Your grandfather did not just leave you money, Miss Frell. He left you the receipts. He closed the folder. Then he stood. There is one more thing. It isn't paper. Come with me. Safe deposit box 218. Dale set the long metal drawer on the table in the privacy room, told me he would wait outside, and pulled the door almost closed behind him. 2 things inside. The first was a sealed cream envelope. On the front in my grandfather's handwriting. For my granddaughter. When you're ready to come home. The second was something wrapped in gray flannel, old and soft and immediately familiar. The same flannel he had been wearing the night I was 15. Standing in the hallway after my mother had counted down his remaining years through the wall. I unwrapped it. A small brass key on a wire ring. Tied to it a folded recipe card. On the front, old-fashioned for when you have your own kitchen. On the back, the actual recipe. The key was to his liquor cabinet. I opened the envelope. 2 pages. The handwriting on the first was steady. On the second, it sloped downward at the ends of the lines. the way his hand had shaken in the last year of his life. Sweetie, if you're reading this, your mother did what I knew she would do. I'm sorry I'm not there. I could only get out ahead of her. I saw all of it. The bracelet. The bedroom. The night I heard her count my years through the wall. I never said it out loud because I didn't want you to feel you had to choose. I wanted to make the choice not exist. So I made it not exist. The house is yours. The accounts are yours. The receipts are yours. None of it can be taken back. You are not a burden. You never were. You were the one who came to the shop. You were the one who learned to sand with the grain. You are the only person in that house who ever closed a door quietly. Don't apologize. Don't explain. Just come home. I love you, Pumpkin. Grandpa. I sat with that letter for a long time. The next morning I called the number Dale had written down for me. Helen Crestwood, attorney at law. She picked up on the second ring. Dale told me you'd be calling, she said. Can you come in this morning? Her office was on the second floor of a yellow brick building on Front Street, her name on a brass plaque beside the door. She was 67. Silver hair, black blazer, a French press already on the desk. She poured me coffee, slid a plate of butter cookies across the desk with 2 fingers, and said, "Eat one." I ate one. Then she opened her own navy folder, an identical copy she had kept for 9 years, and got to work. Your grandfather drafted everything in 2016 with one outcome in mind, she said. Today we activate it. You sign 2 documents. I do the rest. She slid the first page across. A 30-day notice to quit. Under Michigan law, she explained, a person living in a home without a lease, without paying rent, without a legal interest is a tenant at will. Your parents, your sister, and her boyfriend are all tenants at will. You serve notice. If they don't leave, I file with the 86th District Court. They have no lease, no beneficiary status, no equity. The judge will grant possession. The sheriff schedules the lockout. She looked at me over her reading glasses. You don't owe them a fight, Miss Frell. You owe them paperwork. Michigan does the rest. I signed both documents with the heavy pen she handed me. There is no ceremony in justice. Justice is a heavy pen and a Tuesday morning. The process server arrived at 8:18, Cherry Bend Road at 10:14 a.m. on December 28th. My mother answered the door in a salon cape, midway through highlighting a friend's hair. She opened it with her full public smile. Mrs. Frell, I have a 30-day notice to quit issued by the legal owner of this property. The period begins today. My mother's face changed slowly. She held the document like it was written in a language she had never needed to learn. Then she tore it in half. The process server's expression did not change. That's fine, ma'am. I have 3 other copies and a body camera confirming service. Good day. She walked back to her car. My mother stood in the doorway holding 2 halves of a page. Underneath a lawyer's signature, she could still read the words, on behalf of property owner Amber Lynn Frell. My mother hired a lawyer. 3 years out of law school, strip mall office. He read the trust, read the title insurance policy, and called her the next day. Ma'am, you don't have a case. No standing, no lease, no equity, and there's a title insurance policy protecting the deed. I'll send my invoice. His invoice was $385. On January 29th, with my parents still in the house, Helen walked the $45 filing fee across Front Street and dropped a summary proceedings complaint on the clerk's desk. Hearing scheduled. February 6th. My parents came without a lawyer. The judge was a woman named Patricia Greaves, 19 years on the bench. She read the trust. She read the deed. She looked at my parents over her glasses for 4 full seconds. The deed is clear, she said. The court grants possession. You have until February 22nd. No appeal came. My mother had spent the days before February 22nd trying to get local news to cover her side of the story. 2 stations declined. A local podcast declined after 1 hour of research. So on the morning of the lockout, she decided to go live herself. She sat on the leather couch in the living room of a house she no longer owned, wearing a white cardigan she had chosen because she believed white communicated innocence. My sister Cassie set up the ring light. My mother went live at exactly 10:30 a.m. 12 viewers. She began crying before she began speaking. A tactical mistake. She hadn't paced the tears. My own daughter is doing this to us, she said. After everything I sacrifice for her. 45 seconds in, viewers crossed 200. 3 minutes in 800. 5 minutes in over 4,000. Then she said the sentence that ended her. After everything I gave up for her, she made me put her stocking in the fire. She made me. The comments shifted in a single avalanche. Wait, you burned her stocking? Ma'am, you just admitted it on camera. Whose house is this? Where is the daughter? By 10:48, the count was 18,000. By 10:55, 41,000. Then the knock came at the door. My mother heard it and brightened. She turned to the camera with a relieved smile. Probably the news, she said. Finally. See, sweetheart, they're coming for our story. She walked to the door and opened it. Deputy Sheriff Darrell Hawthorne stood on the porch. Dark green winter uniform. Clipboard. Behind him, one backup deputy and a locksmith with the tool bag. The phone was still filming. Mrs. Frell, I have a court-ordered writ of restitution from the 86th District Court. Time to vacate. My mother's mouth opened. 58,000 viewers watched it open. This property belongs to Amber Lynn Frell. Per court order, you have 30 minutes to gather essential personal items. The comments detonated. Her daughter owns the house. This is the greatest plot twist I have ever witnessed. Protect Amber. Cassie, standing behind my mother, dropped her side of the tripod. Her face went white. My father Gary walked out from the kitchen where he had been sitting all morning with a cup of coffee gone cold an hour earlier. He walked past my mother, past the deputy, all the way to the porch steps. He sat down. He put his hands on his knees. He looked out at the snow. She owns the house, he said quietly. Then a little louder, she always did. The TikTok caught it cleanly. My mother turned to him, her face crumpling in a way that looked, for the first time in my memory, like something real. Why didn't you fight for me? She said. My father looked up from the step. A long beat. Because we shouldn't have done what we did. The live stream ended. Cassie deactivated her account within 12 hours. But someone had already clipped the moment. My father sitting on the porch steps, snow on the ground, saying she owns the house, she always did. And that clip reached 4.8 million views in under 48 hours. My parents moved to a 2-bedroom apartment 28 miles southwest of Traverse City. No fireplace. My mother had insisted on a fireplace. She had to settle. The money they had accumulated over 10 years in my grandfather's house had mostly vanished before the lockout. Private school tuition. A failed salon. A fitness brand investment that produced nothing. By February, they had $31,000 between them and a retirement account my father couldn't touch for 5 more years. My mother closed her blog 2 weeks after the lockout because the top comment on every single post, every recipe, every devotional, every inspirational caption, was a stranger asking some version of "Where is Amber?" Cassie lost 4 brand deals in 7 days. Her boyfriend Cole broke up with her by text. 9 words. This isn't the brand I'm building. I'm out. He unfollowed her on every platform within the hour. By March, she was sleeping on the pull-out couch in my parents' apartment in Beulah with 4,200 followers on a new account and 3 weeks of silence between herself and our mother. My father sent me a text in late March. The first message he had ever sent me of his own accord. Amber, I know you don't owe me a reading of this. I'm writing it because I owe you the writing. I should have stopped your mother 30 different times over 30 years. I didn't. I am the kind of man who does not stop things. I know that now. I will not contact you again unless you want me to. I'm sorry, not because I expect it to change anything, but because it is the only true thing I have left to give you. Dad. I read it 14 times. I didn't reply. But I didn't delete it either. On a Saturday morning in late March, I drove up Cherrybend Road for the first time since Christmas. The snow had melted off the lawn. The air was still cold. Deputy Hawthorne was waiting on the porch with a small set of new keys on a brass ring. He shook my hand and said, "Welcome home, Miss Frell," and stepped aside. I unlocked the front door with the original brass key, the one my grandfather had carried on his belt loop for 43 years, and stepped inside. The living room was empty. They had taken what they considered theirs. The fireplace was clean and cold. The hardwood floors my grandfather had laid in 1972 were still there. And underneath everything else, faint and patient, the smell of cedar. I set the walnut box on the mantel where my stocking had been. The first week of April I went up to the attic. In the far corner under the eave was a cardboard box I had never seen. On the front in marker in my grandfather's hand, Amber, 2020. I sat down on the floorboards and opened it. Inside were 5 things. The first was a Christmas stocking. Soft cream wool. My name embroidered along the cuff in red thread, slightly uneven. The way embroidery looks when an old man with shaking hands does it himself in the evenings without telling anyone. On the inside lining for small stitched letters, Hall, 2020. The second, third, fourth, and fifth things were small walnut boxes, identical to the one he had given me at 16. Same dovetails, same hinges, same thin cherry border on the lids. He had made 4 more of them, for backup doors in case the first one was not enough. I knelt on those cold attic floorboards and held that stocking against my chest. And for the first time since I was 8 years old, I cried the way you cry when you are not afraid of being heard. Because I understood what he had done. Every year that my mother had stood in a room and announced that I had ruined Christmas, he had been 1 floor below her with a needle in his hand, stitching my name into wool. Every year that she had subtracted me quietly from the family's ledger, he had been adding to mine, in a walnut box, in a trust document signed with a contractor's pencil, in a bank account fed with small bills from cabinet commissions no one knew about. She had been telling one story about me for 25 years. He had been writing a different one in silence downstairs, in the years before I would need it. I carried the box down. I hung the stocking on the mantel beside the walnut box. I pulled my grandfather's workbench out of the corner and set it back in the center of the room where it belonged. I laid his chisels out in size order the way he had taught me when I was 9. I tied on his leather apron, the one with the horseshoe burn on the right side, the one he had never replaced because the burn meant the apron was working. I am not a cabinet maker. I will probably never be a cabinet maker. But I will learn the way he taught me. Sandpaper with the grain. Always with the grain. People are the same. My grandfather did not save me. People will want to say he did, and I understand the impulse, but that is not quite right. What he did was prepare a door, and leave it where I could find it. The hand on the knob that Christmas morning in my socks in the snow, that was my own. What only love does is what he did 9 years before I needed it. He saw what was coming. He drafted a trust. He signed it with a contractor's pencil. He stitched my name into a stocking I would not find for half a decade. He put a brass key in a walnut box and told me any time, any reason, any hour. And then he sat with that knowledge for 9 years and never once told me, because he did not want me to feel I had to choose before I was ready. The world will sometimes do its best to make you feel like a burden. The math will sometimes seem to confirm it. That is not love's math. Love's math is quieter. It is being on the 2nd floor in the evenings with a needle and a piece of wool, in the years before the storm. Some people don't make you a key on the day you need it. They make it years in advance. They keep it waiting. They trust you to find it. I'm Amber Frell. I am 25 years old. I live at 818 Cherrybend Road, in the house my grandfather built with his own hands in 1971 and left to me in 2016, handed to me by way of a brass key in a walnut box on the coldest morning of my life. I have a fireplace. I have a stocking on the mantel with my name in red thread. And I have a door. The door he built before I knew I would need one. I closed it tonight.